But let's get to the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets. The same Nets team, right, that played my entire life. I forget about childhood up until a couple of years ago, in the most I don't even know what the word is. I used innocuous in the first segment, so I don't want to use that word again, but the arena was just bland. It had no history. I think when I was a kid, it was the Brendan Byrne Arena. And then it was like the Izod Center, one of these places that has 9 names because none of the sponsors are really happy with the return for the bang for their buck because nobody's really going, quite frankly. Now, that's not to say, give you a little history lesson here, that's not to say that the New Jersey Nets, and I'm not even talking about Jason Kidd and obviously Kenyon Martin and Jefferson and those guys, Vince Carter. I'm not talking about those guys. Those guys were terrific. 2 finals appearances. Way before that. I mean, they had some players. They had Buck Williams, who was a beast, wound up playing for Portland later, played for the Knicks as well. Great rebound. One of the great rebounders of all time. And they had some good players. I mean, they really did. But Otis Birdsong was a guard I remember seeing as a real young guy. Good player. Mike O'Koren, Mike Jaminski. They're a pretty good team. Stan Albeck, right? I believe they beat – well, they definitely beat Philly one of those years, 83 maybe? No, 83 Philly won the – I guess it would have been – I guess maybe 82 or 84. They beat a Philly team they weren't supposed to beat. Point being, even with some good players, right, the place was just empty. It just had no buzz. And as a young boy who couldn't wait for my dad to get home with both New York newspapers, I mean, the Nets got nothing. The Knicks could be the worst. Sometimes they were. I mean, the Yankees could be a circus. And a lot of times when I was a kid, they were. The Mets were a doormat most of my childhood. Horrendous. The Nets got 1/50th of what those teams got, right? The Jets, awful. The Giants were bad in spurts. The Nets were the Nets were next to like the comics. Right before the movies, right next to Family Circus cartoon sketch. That's how irrelevant the Nets were. And now it's all different. Now they're in Brooklyn, right? And now the Nets are cool. They got sweet uniforms. Their court's pretty tight. Their arena's pretty cool. KD said, that's the place I want to go play. Brooklyn's cool. Yeah, it is cool. It is cool. You're right. Kyrie Irving, I want to play with my guy, Kate. That's right. Here we go. Brooklyn. All right, James Harden. Get me out of Houston. I want to go play with those guys in Brooklyn. All right. Okay. And now we throw Blake Griffin into the mix. And here's what – it happened even without Blake Griffin. But here's what has officially happened. Now the Nets – and this is so good for the NBA. And I know Net fans will take this from the Knicks guy, jealousy. Yeah, I wish I had those guys on my team. Sure. I wish I could win a championship. Absolutely. I'm not going to hide that. This is not coming from the Knicks guy. This is just coming from a sportscaster who's objective when he needs to be, which is really all the time, even though I got my teams. I'd like to think I see things pretty clearly, right? You have to hate the Nets, and now you have to root against the Nets. I don't care who they are playing. The Nets now must become the villain, and that is good for business because when there's a team that you hope listen, not everybody, now most people loved Mike Tyson, but not everybody loved Mike Tyson. But those who didn't love Mike Tyson, why did they watch Mike Tyson? In the rare, unforeseen possibility somebody clips him on the chin and puts him on his back. Hello, Buster Douglas in Tokyo, right? There are just situations, not everybody loved Tiger Woods. Honestly, I know he's revered now, and he's softened, and he's humanized, with the issues with his ex-wife and multiple car crashes and, battles with pills and degenerative back and multiple surgeries. He's become a figure that you want to elevate rather than maybe have jealousy kind of twisted, which it did for a lot of people. But you still watch Tiger hoping that guy who was teeing it up on the final round next to him, who we all knew had no chance. Somehow you were rooting for that unknown Bob May, for that guy to somehow beat Tiger Woods. Rocco Mediate. who was game in 08 when Tiger beat him on one leg going into the Monday at the U.S. Open. So these are stories that we need. This is what sport needs. If everything was the feel-good, happy Golden State Warriors, even before Kevin Durant, that changed it for sure. It changed it more for KD than it did for the Warriors. But Steph, I said this before, how do you not like Steph Curry? How do you not respect Klay Thompson? How do you not respect and in a lot of ways love Draymond Green's throwback tenacity? Like these are things we lusted. Oh, remember back in the 90s when Charles Oakley would do this or this guy would do that. That's Draymond Green. So how do you not love that? If you're pining for what was, you got to love that. But now the Nets enter the equation. And they give us something that we need, which elevates the sport and makes watching them a must. Because you have to watch because they could drop 150 on you. They could. And they will. Before this year's over, they're going to hit 150. Maybe more. And now with Blake Griffin, bought out, about $8 or $9 million in the buyout, goes to the Nets. And now it's just this compilation of guys currently in their prime, all-time superstar, transcendent league figures, and Blake Griffin, who's a notch below that, obviously, not nearly what he was. But here's the thing. I'm talking about the emotional stuff, how you now watch the Nets because most of you will root against the Nets because you don't want to see it. You don't want to believe, and I agree with this, you don't want to believe that winning a championship is that easy, that there are shortcuts out there that are that easy to latch onto. Let's see. A couple of years ago, we were in New Jersey, and this middling, just obscure, irrelevant NBA franchise, even with intermittent success, but still, totality, irrelevant. You never saw anybody wearing Nets gear, right? You didn't see the Nets too often on national TV, outside of that Jay Kidd era that I referenced before. So that was an anomaly. They went from that to, whoa, who the hell's going to beat the Brooklyn Nets? And that is powerful. That's tangible stuff. That is what we want because we're not going to get it in round one, whomever they play. Well, I still play my Knicks in round one. Whomever they play in round one won't be up for the challenge. They'll get the floor wiped with them. They'll just be a doormat for the Nets. Round two, depending upon the matchup, depending upon if that team makes a move before the deadline, right? Like if another East Coast team, Eastern Conference team, picked up Drummond, even though I think he's going to wind up with the Lakers, but I don't know, I'm just throwing something out there. Say if the Celtics got Drummond, at least you can say it's interesting if the Celtics get their act together, which I'm not so sure that they will. But when you get to the conference finals and then ultimately the NBA finals, and I don't see how the Nets don't get there, I mean, you've got something now that is it's a powerful pill. You flip on that TV, and you're either waiting for the show or you are openly rooting for them to just fall short, to choke, to lose, so that it shows that the best route is the organic one. Or maybe not the best route because this is the shortcut, and this might be the best route. The most rewarding route, there you go. The most rewarding route is the organic one, where you do your due diligence as a franchise, where you show that great draft acumen, like the Utah Jazz. They draft Spider Mitchell. They draft Rudy Gobert. They pick up Ingles. They pick up this Jordan Clarkson, who was a kind of a cast-off. They've got a coach who's been there 8 years, Quinn Snyder. Like, that's the organic way. That's the incremental way. Will that win a championship? Probably not. No. So you're almost better off taking the shortcut. But this is crazy. And, as we get the update from Mac here in a second, Blake Griffin's going to be fine. Don't tell me, well, he can't dunk. It's been 2 years. I understand that. Blake Griffin with the Pistons, when he was playing, was put in a position to do things his body simply could no longer do. Now, Blake Griffin becomes, I don't even think he's the fourth option because that's either DeAndre Jordan, more specifically Joe Harris. The guy might be the fifth or the sixth option. And even a diminished athlete, which he is clearly diminished. That's why every old boxer got to watch that one shot, that one great fight. They can, they can harness it for one night. Got to be careful. You just never know. One great pitcher, even think of it, well, Clemens might not be a great example because of the PEDs, but somebody like Greg Maddux, even at an advanced stage, an older Tom Seaver, they can summon something that's kind of a throwback to what they were. And there'll be a couple of nights this year where Blake Griffin looks like he's one of the best players on the court. That's coming. So, nice job by the Nets, picking up somebody who will help them. Yes, he's not the same. I don't think that matters. Doesn't need to be. But now we all join in unison, and this is where it gets fun. We root against you. We root against you, and we root against you with vigor. Like there's like the head, like kind of sitting on the couch, like you click, I'd like to see this team, whatever. Now I'm talking about when the Nets are in an important game, right? A swing game, 2-2, Game 5, Conference Finals, NBA Finals. You are on the edge of your seat watching and rooting, unless you're rooting for, but rooting earnestly against them. Shortcuts, we don't want to believe that that's the way to go. We'll find out if it is. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.